So, good morning, Sasha. Good morning, everyone. Kalimera. Sasha, the floor is yours. As soon as you're ready, you can start your session. Thanks.
Okay, καλημέρα σε όλους. Καλώς ορίσατε. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. And we are today at the Collabdays Greece Excellent organization. Thank you very much for giving the opportunity to be here. Very nice to see. Very nice to see all of you. A lot of familiar faces and names. Actually, names, because you have turned your camera off. But still, it is very. I'm very glad to be here. And very glad to present the ABCs of threat hunting in the Microsoft Cloud. Why ABCs? Of course, there's just a few steps that we need to take to create our environment so much more secure. Which are these steps? We're going to see how we should approach, in fact, the threat hunting, and when some incidents happen, actually what should be the workflow. But before that, it's even more important how to prevent most of the things to happen with just a couple of steps. And when these steps don't work, what are the steps to mitigate these threats? So what are the general steps? In this session, we'll describe what are the general principles of actually how to tackle the incidents, the threats that can occur, or actually that will occur anyway. No matter what we try, we will have some incidents, some threats, some alerts. But if you've never tried some let's say a strategic or actually a step-by-step approach, or actually systematic approach, this might be the chance to systematize the threat hunting in the not just in the Microsoft cloud, but actually in any cloud. But anyway, few things about me, and then we're gonna start. My name is Sasha, and I'm as the owner, or actually the founder of the Cloud. I'm also the CEO of the company and also of the few others. But what we do the consulting, we do training, we do architecture, we do pen testing, and everything around the cloud and security. I'm also Microsoft Regional Director and Microsoft MVP. Have been MVP for Azure, and then Azure and security, and then I'm just security. So anyway, have been here for quite a long time. Also have few certifications under the belt, and a couple of books as well. It's well, around the books, you can easily find these on Amazon, which is the Microsoft 365 security compliance, and some Defender for Cloud and Windows Server. But anyway, these books are quite well, they very nice to actually read and actually brag. Oh, I've wrote a book in the IT world. No one's become the second Joanne J.K. Rowling, right? So it's not like writing a Harry Potter. So the things go quickly, fade away, as I would say. The things are changing very, very quickly. Anyway, so what about the threat hunting in here? So let's take a look at what the threat hunting is and how to approach it. So a few statistics about the threat hunting and some general things. So the traditional cybersecurity is reactive, in fact. So we need to think in proactive terms. So what it means? What does it mean? It means that when something happens, we react, in fact. But certainly there are some steps that we should take, that we can take before things happen, so to minimize the things to happen. So there is no absolutely secure system today. So given time and money, you can get into every single system today, every. So absolutely, there's no 100% secure system. The only thing that what's the difference between more secure and less secure systems is that you will need a little bit more time, or significantly more time and money, to get into it. So, and that's the point, ruining a return of investment for attackers and for the perpetrators, for the stealers, for the hackers, is what we actually need to do. Plus some additional thing, and that would be a backup, for example, mining the backups, but a little bit later about that. So there is no absolutely secure system. Every system can be breached, every system can be broken, but depending on what kind of what resources do you have, what kind of knowledge do you have to break into it, and knowledge means money as well, and that means time. So you will be able to break into some state's facility or actually computer systems, but you will need like 1,000 or 10,000 PhD cybersecurity professionals and unlimited amount of time and money, and which we don't have. So we the perpetrators, the attackers, actually need to get to the data as fast as they can and in the cheapest way they can, and that's the point here. So um, how to insert some additional steps to protect our environment, and it's about how to, in fact, uh, create additional layers as much as possible, layers of security layers, which means turning security knobs on our systems environments to make these attackers, these to make their attacks last longer, to be able for us to more easily spot them in every as they cross the layers, because we will have some logging in there, and that will in fact they will need a little bit more time to do that. They Each and every step actually involves a little bit more knowledge about the systems, and that's it, actually ruining the return on investment. And today the threat hunting is a proactive, in fact, it should be a proactive approach to cybersecurity, which is it is based on the assume breach mindset, which is the pillar of zero trust security anyway. And the threat hunting is also concerned about emerging threats rather than known attack methods as well. And this is where the people take the lead. So today, in fact, the cybersecurity can feel like a game of whack-a-mole. So as you go and hunt for a mole, then as soon as before you whack it, then the mole disappears and just appears somewhere else, and it seems like a never-ending uh, catch game. But in fact, the threat hunting should be the assume breach and be proactive, which beats the traditional cybersecurity that is reactive. In fact, there are the detection endpoint detection tools, for example, that identify potential incidents, and then they block some and hand off some others to people that investigate and mitigate these. And this works for the most of the many of the routines, for example, like automated, well-known attacks. But the most sophisticated, in fact, adversaries or attackers actually understand how these security solutions work, in fact, and continuously evolve. And we need to evolve this around their tactics around them. The goal of the attackers actually is to remain undetected, under the radar, so they can gain access. And of course, to stop them, first we need to find them. So the threat hunting, it is a proactive approach to cybersecurity, which is predicated on the assume breach mindset. And assume breach is actually the one pillar of the zero trust, in fact. And the zero trust is, do you know what would be your definition of zero trust? Anyone? So it is not a product like a friend of mine said. Oh, we will buy 100 of zero trust licenses today, and we will start on Monday. Well, it's not like that. And zero trust is not a product. Zero trust is a approach to security, is a strategy, is a philosophy that that actually is not new. The zero trust has been here for a while. Zero trust the term has been coined by Stephen Paul Marsh in 1994 at the University of Stirling, England. in his doctoral dissertation, April 94 actually, and which is a quite nice doctoral dissertation. There's a free PDF of it. You can download it if you need to see all the numbers, because it's a very mathematical one, of course. And from there, from the 1994, fast forward year 2014, Jericho Forum, Google, and other players actually figured out that the traditional defenses actually don't work, which was the network. Today, the identity is the security boundary, and that is in fact what we build our defenses around. So around the identity, these are just a couple of numbers that I brought up that were obsolete the moment I wrote them. So 300% rise in identity-based attacks in the past year. It is the old number. As soon as I wrote it, these attacks rose significantly. Then a lot of people actually, CISOs and CEOs, and actually report seeing an increase in phishing campaigns. So it doesn't matter which aspect of cybersecurity and attacks we look at, all the numbers actually go down a little bit. Some of the numbers actually go up. Sorry about that. Some of the numbers actually go down, and there's the MFA number of attacks related breaches and so on. But some other actually are, and everything else, or almost everything else, is on the rise, like phishing, successful phishing attempts, and social engineering attacks, etc. And these numbers are actually, you can easily quadruple or actually multiply them by multiple numbers, like 5, 10, 6, 7 of these. We do have a very nice Microsoft cybersecurity report that was very comprehensive in 2024. A couple of weeks ago, Microsoft published the version of 2025. The 2024 actually has a couple of hundreds of pages, but you can also download the executive summary, CISO summary, if you'd like to see some 10, 15, 7 pages. And then I suggest that you read through it, and then that you go through the 2025 as well. So it's a free document. It's a very eye-opening document if you go through it. And it opens, actually gives you perspective where actually these attacks are going. So you can also focus your attention. And which is, today we shouldn't ask ourselves, actually say, oh, if we're going to be attacked, and then if you build your defenses on the question, on sentence, if we are going to be attacked, if there will be an attack, then we will do this and this, and which is completely wrong. Because if you just ask yourself a very honest question, and which is also most important, if you answer honestly, when we are under attack, or actually when we are under attack and this server is no longer here, right this moment, let's say in 5 seconds, what's going to happen? So are you ready for that? So just take any SQL server, any domain controller, any service in Azure, any identity provider, or any data that you have there. So what if you just, in the next 5 seconds, that you lose it? So what's going to happen? And what are you going to do? And that completely shifts the attention to something else. So that is also very important. And which is also important, that how crime works today. So these are just some of the examples. So today you have, if you've surfed the or onioned, I would say, the dark web and the deep web, among other things that are here, is the crime as a service, and which is quite an industry, $1 billion dollars industry, where you can hire anyone, and then in fact for any amount of money, and then in fact get something in return. So honest criminals also have SLAs. So these criminals also can, well, guarantee you that they will that you will make some money out of the campaign that you purchased from them, for example. So that's That's the point. And what's even scarier is that you don't have to have any knowledge. So people, companies don't have to have any knowledge about that. They just need to pay. Of course, if you're brave enough, you will pay with a credit card, but usually you use some bitcoins and so on. So that's the point. So the billion-dollar industry, crime industry, is thriving, which is also very important because that how these things operate today. Cyber criminals have like big bosses have hold the keys to the ransomware, and all their minions or the variations of that ransomware applications have identifiers which enable them to exactly identify correctly their minions who, in fact, use their ransomware to make money. So the more money you make for the big boss, the more incentivized you to get some, well, better profit. So if you, for example, encrypt, or if you ransom successfully, if you deploy ransomware to a company and then you get like 2 millions, then you will get 10% of that money. If you do a little bit bigger numbers, then you get 20%. And the big bosses are sitting behind the computers and exactly know which instance of their software made a certain amount of money because it's encoded uniquely in it. So it is quite a lucrative industry. But the good thing is that with we don't have to have we don't have to invest a lot for that. So that means that to significantly lower the threats, the attacks, and exfiltrations from actually breaches. So these are going to happen anyway, but you will significantly lower the numbers if you do a couple of these. So 98% of the protection, the basic security hygiene still protects around roughly 98% of attacks. And that will be like multi-factor authentication, which is a very simple thing. People will say, oh, this is stupid. Why is this Sasha actually mentioning multi-factor authentication at all? Because if you look at the cybersecurity report, for example, in 2024, but also Microsoft said it in the Orlando, I think it was 2018 at Ignite, that only around roughly 3.5 or 4% of the global admins actually had enabled MFA on their accounts in like 6-7 years ago. So having like 2% of the 3% of the MFA globally, it's a scary number. And today this number is not even a lot bigger. You would say, okay, it's going to be definitely 98%, which is not. Actually, it's around 50, 60%, 65, depending on the industry and the country. But we're still away from that. And even I had one situation where a big company, actually of a couple of tens of thousands employees, turned off the MFA for entire department of, let's say, almost 1,000 employees, because it was seriously ruining the productivity, and which caused a lot of problems. The point is, basic things like anti-malware, good anti-malware. Then again, the MFA, which is practically absolutely a must here. The MFA. Also some keep versions up to date. We had one very recently, one very big breach, a large breach, and then it happened just because of the one library hasn't been updated. It's just actually crazy because this company did everything by the book. And then protection of the data. That is, in fact, one of the things that people do not do correctly or at all, like encrypt the data, use some information protection. So, and least privilege access. So these 5 things that are here actually will, MFA alone will actually resolve or diminish, for example, like 95% of the identity-based problems. So today what we have commodity versus human operated attacks, or humor. I also suggest that you download the cybersecurity reference architecture, which was updated recently. Excellent document, a couple of hundreds of, well, actually almost 100 slides, but it has a very good information there. So I suggest that you download it, that you use it to present to your C-level managers, or to whoever you are speaking, to raise the awareness of the security. Because today, like I mentioned previously in the example, commodity malware attacks on the rise. So and human operated attacks are on the rise. So commodity malware attacks are actually the everyday threats, in fact, where the remediation is simple. These target broad audience, and although these commodity operated attacks are on the rise, this can be pretty much easily remediated. So these are like sprayed attacks, so they go wide and short, do not have very large blasts. So these are not targeted attacks, in fact. So you just leave some, I don't know, Trojan or some virus or whatever, you just and hope that someone will catch. So these leverage highly automated attack techniques. So and these are focused on infecting a large number of endpoints, and that these are delivered using different techniques that would appeal to many potential targets. For example, some free things, some freebies, and some emails that have been sent out there that people actually click on them, and so on. Practically, these are not targeted ones that everyone gets. Like there's a Nigerian prince, and there's the money is waiting for you. You just need to send for this poor prince, like the money for the airfare ticket anyway. And I know the person, actually one who actually paid for that Nigerian prince, and then it was in the papers, and that person actually went to look. He was very angry, and actually went to Nigeria to look for that prince, and where's that money? Actually went to that address, which is okay, mind blowing, very stupid, and in fact funny. But anyway, the commodity is a large number, not targeted, opposed to the humor, or actually the human operated attacks, which is focused on specific targets. These can evade specific organizational protections, and so these use customized tools. The tools today can be easily customized. If you're interested, I also can give you can contact me, or I can eventually point you to my GitHub repository. When I find something, I usually fork the repository and have a repository of these free tools that you can use for testing, for example, your security. These are customized tools, or the tools that are broad, and that you can in fact customize for your purpose. So the point is these are free to get, and these abuse also some legitimate administrative tools to avoid detection, in fact. So these are highly targeted one and specific one, which are a little bit harder to get and to detect. So this is just one example of actually human operated attack. So which just gives you the high level overview of the steps involved. So the steps involved are, in fact, the initial access. Then you have usually the credential theft, then some lateral movement, and then the persistence, and then the exfiltration, impact, etc. So why is this all intertwined? Because there is no one way that the attackers can go. So in recent Microsoft publications, and the things that will be mentioned in 2 weeks at Ignite, will mention that actually that the attackers think in graphs, not linearly, like not in silos like we think. So we have one silo, Office 365 communication protection. Actually, we have identity protection, we have cloud apps protection. these attackers do not operate and attack only in one area. They actually span areas. This is actually spanning the areas. And actually, these lines describe how the attackers think and how they move. So they operate in graphs, and we should also operate in actually defending graphs, which is a little bit harder, but Microsoft is actually pulling us towards that point. So there are a lot of steps that the attackers can go, but there are some few simple steps that actually can make our environment very much more secure, and that can in fact well make us not break the bank and also get started with. So there are a few simple steps, and consistency and strategy is key here. So we have three things. We have authentication, backdoors, and communication. So this is where all the things happen. You can roughly also easily take some other columns or areas, but you will see what I mean when I say ABCs, or actually authentication, backdoors, and communication. These are the main steps how these things, the attacks happen, and where we can focus. What does it mean? Authentication. What does it mean? What questions do we need to ask ourselves? So how this happen? When we do proactive hunting, which is hunting on the third level, like level 3 hunting. It's not the first level automated one, the second targeted response, but actually one of the level 3 defenses is responding to the very high sophisticated attacks, which is the reactive one. And I speak about the second half of the layer 3, which is the proactive hunting, which is okay. Let's see what we have today. We don't have any attack, don't have any alerts. Let's see if there is something fishy and suspicious in our environment. So if you want to find, and when you find something, then you should ask yourselves what identities, for example, the attacker used to gain initial access, because there has to be one. There has to be, and the attacker has to use some of the identities to get in. The identities, an identity needs to be involved there. So there will be trace there. So if you focus on that, you will find a clue. So that's the first one. Of course, the steps are not like, you don't have to follow these exact steps, but you have to keep these in mind. So also, what identities were compromised or potentially exposed to the attacker? Are there any identities that did not follow the zero trust principles, for example? Were there any accounts that were created by the attacker? What I mean, there can be some automated attacks, automated service principal, for example, that doesn't need to be the identity related to the person, of course. And what the attackers used for as an attack vector. What was it? What identities did they use? So first start with identities. Start with that. We have Sentinel, we have, of course, Defender XDR, we have very nice tables and work screens and graphs that we can take a look at it. And what elements are being used here? So user accounts, principal accounts, identities, cloud identities. I said some functions, also the app created passwords were used, cookies, SaaS tokens, everything. Email address is obvious because we are now speaking about identities. All of these things are some of the examples that the attackers might have used in the first initial phase. So usually some dormant account, let's say, that has been here for a while, that has been non-utilized or underutilized, that we forgot about it. There was some storage account there that, or some function or some application that someone actually has been using, and there may be some file share that someone actually used in some server that we recently also found that has been for example, attached, then someone forgot to detach, and then that was also used to spread the malware, and so on. So the general thing, so there has to be one attack vector there. So what was the initial thing, the initial entry point? What was the attack vector that the users, the attackers actually utilized? So we need to answer that. And that's why we have, for example, Sentinel, that we have some logging, we have our graphs that we can take a look, some anomalies, and so on. So, and then again, there's a bees. I've just made 4 examples of 4 questions of each of these. There are much more. How did the attacker gain control over the device's servers? What was the lateral movement? So once the attackers went in, how did they gain access in the authentication? So the access was gained not by maybe compromising the global admin account, but it was usually some small accounts, some insignificant accounts, some service principal, some very small function, something that did something like copy pasting or some, I don't know, whatever, backing up something, or some function that did very small things, insignificant for us, but significant for the attackers. And then the attackers move once, twice, X, Y, Z times until they get to the account that has some administrative, some permissions, some privileges. So how did the attacker gain control over the device of the service? So are there any overly exposed administrative capabilities? For example, the account has been used of the person who has been on a sick leave or the vacation, and we didn't have any detection capabilities? Is there a vulnerability, the recent one, so that the attackers actually abused? And this recently happened in one of our cases, where this library show that has been not updated have been utilized as the attack vector for the attackers to go in, and at the end gain access to the system and to the files. Have been any backdoors that have been installed? Backdoors means anything here. So the files, the identities, the functions, whatever. So any permissions, backdoor elements, what's gonna be there? You look for web shells, accidental or intentional misconfigurations to provide remote access. Some that might be, administrator just by accident lowered the permissions or whatnot, and then after that, very good administrator, because it remediated that for in like 2 minutes or a minute, because it was definitely was a mistake, but it was, that might someone said, and that we had one case that was the case as well. But in fact, it was deliberate one. It was not the admin, or actually the person who had these who's been the owner of that account, but it was actually the attacker who made this. So it wasn't the very good administrator that figured out his or her mistake, but it was actually the attacker who did it. Are there any remote administration tools that someone can take advantage of? Is there any, usually that malware provides remote access, some DLLs that also are dormant there, that have not been updated. Maybe we don't have some app control of that. Maybe we do not have some allow list or block list, for example, for the apps on our devices. So everything can be there. So look for any backdoor elements, like spikes, for example, or some weird behavior. That's why we have our graphs here that can also tell us about what happened. So any anomalies in here. How did the attacker, and then there's a communication. There always has to be some communication, because the attacker needs to in fact communicate with your system, with any of the bees, in fact, that we've seen here. And usually the attackers do not, some very bad ones, or actually bad in their business, perform some automations or perform these things in a very predictable, repetitive way, or do that in the after hours. But the smart ones actually do the randomized techniques of accessing their systems. They mingle or actually intertwine their communication with your normal operation hours and so on and so forth. Just look for any specific anomalies. There's a lot of KQL scripts, for example, and hunting techniques that can take advantage of that, providing that you also have that you collected enough of the data, or actually quality data, in log analytics workspaces from all the systems that you can in fact query and find that. How the communication was possible, in fact, between the system, compromised system, and the attacker. Are there any attributes to this communication that could be tracked, for example, this malicious activity and so on? What are legitimate apps that the attacker used to communicate with? So are there any communications that have not been here that the attackers are using now that can be detected, for example, and so on? Are there any versions that can be identified as the old ones that the attackers might have used, and etc.? The communication elements in the ports are not, well, they might be hidden, obfuscated, but these are there, so we know that there is something. So it's only the point finding where it is and at what system. So are there any proxies, any network routes, are there any network relays, user agent strings, some DNS combinations or changes, some IP addresses that have not been here, some we know that a packet needs to go through, so the information is there, so we just need to filter out from the noise that we have there. And what are the signs of a human operated attack? Evidence of a human error, usually. Also evidence of motive, some organizational reconnaissance, credential theft use and response to recovery attempt, and so on. So what threat hunting, in fact, and we need to determine actually that the systems are under targeted exploitation, of course. We also need to identify the processes for the recovery process, for identifying the attacker and actually evicting the attacker from the environment. So that's why we have to have the segmentation. That's why we need to actually gather the data at the beginning of our architectural endeavors, not at the end or in the middle or towards the end, like some documentation actually says. So the security should be and monitoring part of the very beginning, because if we don't if we leave that monitoring set up at the end, for the end of the implementation, then we lost very valuable data at the beginning. Again, threat hunting approach, there are very simple but very extremely effective principles. So threat hunting approach should be a targeted threat hunting. It should involve also the security monitoring, and it's usually incident response investigation. But if we are proactive, then these need to follow these things to be effective, because the threat hunting principles or threat hunting, it's like finding a needle in a haystack, or actually a needle in a sea. So it's very difficult if we don't focus. If we focus, then we are going to be better, faster, more efficient. So that there are very known threat hunting principles that work for everyone. They're based on the Alexiou principle, Mike Alexiou. So there are four things. First, four questions that you need to ask yourself. So first question is, what question are you trying to answer? So if you do the proactive thing, so you don't wake up one morning and say, I'm looking at my workbooks and my graphs and whatnot, so let's just go through the environment. You're not going to find anything. You have to look for a specific thing. So what question are you trying to answer? So when you look at it, then you have to ask yourself and answer yourself, what question are you trying to answer? So the answer might be, I'm looking for anomalous mailbox, exchange mailbox manipulation, for example, or I'm looking for any logins after 2100 hours in the last week, for example, because this is, let's focus on that one. Or are there any unusual increases in MFA false, for example, rejected MFA registrations, for example, or attempts. So, and you will be more focused on that. So then you have to get objectives. So framing the question clearly actually helps you define the scope of every threat hunt, because you will then focus on very specific things. And then the second one is, what data do you need? What data do you need to answer that question? So if you're looking for the MFA anomalies or some bad, or actually some MFA failed authentication attempts, then you will know where to find it and where to look it and where's the data. So you will, to answer that question, you will actually need to know where to what kind of data do you need to answer that. Or if it's a intra identity, then you will need to look at the failed attempts or something like that. Then you'll need to look at these attempts, or 462 5 or 462 4 or whatever event IDs in the Windows systems, etc., etc. And then how do you extract the data? How do you look at the data? So it's probably is not going to be a simple one. If it's simple, then the answer is very simple. Just write one line query KQL, and then it'll be there. But the information, these two first questions will probably result in a little bit more sophisticated query. That will be, are there any persons from this department that have access these resource from a very specific device in this time frame? I will need to find this out, and it's going to be also the question, how do you extract this data? So you need to capture that data using various tool sets, for example, point in time snapshot or tool or something like that, like defensive endpoint logs or Sentinel, etc. And then after you look at it, after you look at the collected data, then you need to answer, what does the data tell you? So if you look at the graph, because looking at the data itself doesn't tell you anything, you have to look at you have to visualize the data. Humans are very visual beings. So if you look at the numbers, these don't mean anything. We need to have graphs, pies, charts, lines, trends, and then we'll spot, oh, there's a spike in, I don't know, failed attempts. Okay, this is very helpful, because it narrows 6 months to 1 day, because we will see the spike. What does the data tell you? It's not going to be one type of data. Usually you will need several graphs, several different types of data to correlate and to put one over the other to get a bigger picture of what happened, and then the data will give you the answer. So just keep in mind, write it down or make a screenshot. Alexiou principle. Mike Alexiou, what these 4 principles of threat hunting, which brings us to the general threat hunting strategies. So you have to know with known bads, with starting with identities of compromise. These are three things that you need to think about. So this has to be the atomic, well, up to the smallest unit. Computed match, you have to match multiple atomic indicators using hashes, regex, and so on. And then behavioral types. So patterns of adversary actions, techniques and procedures, and TTPs, for example, preferences, file paths, username, tools, and so on and so forth. So you need to figure out that one. So these are quick wins. You have verified IOCs, known potential threats, actor-specific TTPs, typical techniques, and so on. And there you have also anomaly-based hunting, which also you need to figure out. So we are ready in 1 to 2 minutes. We do have to define baselines. So perform baseline comparison for the data because you have to have the data collected very early, determine the usual versus the unusual. That could be peaks, valleys, trends, some data that sticks out that is anomalous. So look for anomalies, and don't just look at one graph. Look at multiple graphs and overlap them. So compare the timelines as well. So look at the endpoint, look at the SaaS, look at the on premises, look at the cloud, look at the applications, the identities, and everything, and then look for that account, what this identity did in this time frame over the spanning products, SharePoint, OneDrive, and so on, and summarize your data and clean the output. Actually, format the data to in favor of efficiency and accuracy to actually just remove the noise. But you can't remove the noise if you don't collect a lot of data, and then you can play with the filter. And then there's the attack narrative of MITRE ATT&CK framework foundation. So we're 1 minute over, but still a few things to go. How did the attacker gain access? These are the questions to ask. What did they do once inside? What happened? What accounts they use? Where they persisted? Which systems did they access? What were the lateral movements? Any data modified, access, exfiltrated? Are they still there? So you have to think about that. There are tools across our portfolio, Microsoft, that we can utilize, of course. And then develop a threat hunting hypothesis. So first of all, this is the last slide. Keep it achievable. So that's, don't look at 6 months of data. Focus on one part. Keep the scope narrow, which will actually give you the. Don't look at the entire organization or department. Look at one identity, for example, or one app. Keep it time bound. Don't look at, as I said, like 90 days or a week. Look for a 24 hours or 1 hour. Useful and efficient. Document everything, keeping related to the threat model that you're defending against, because you're don't look for other things if you're investigating, for example, MFA. And this goes over and over around. And keep track. So just keep written track of what you've done. So you've identified this account for the Monday, for the identities, then you have to do some different things on Tuesday, and so on and so forth. So you don't overlap, because the data is there is a huge amount of data, and then you can get lost. You can lose time, valuable time, while the attackers are still there. So this is just a scratch and how to start with the the ABCs of the threat hunting. We didn't have any time to actually go through the Sentinel, through Defender XDR, but that might be also the case for the 100% demo for some other conferences that will other presentation that we will do. So anyway, thanks a lot for being here. Appreciate it. It's early in the morning, so and it's Saturday, so very very grateful for that.
Thank you, Sasha, for your session. Much appreciated.
Thanks a lot.
We have to stop meeting like this. We have to meet somewhere in some conference.
Exactly.
Like the old days. Okay, so
Definitely.
I'll check the chat if there are any questions. I don't see any. So thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Okay, so the next session starts at 12 o'clock. You can remain online and join the next speaker. Thank you all.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.